What's up? Welcome back to my channel, or for the first time if you're new, I'm Sylvan, and today I'm going to be reacting to Asaba Harumasa's character demo, When the Crows Perch. I can't say I was expecting this to come out today, but here we are. I suppose the altered release schedule for 1.4 has resulted in probably a major front-loading of content for demos and teasers and trailers and stuff. I imagine we'll probably be getting his EP and potentially a teaser later this week, and then I believe we have confirmed the dates of the Miyabi stuff next week. It seems like we'll have a pretty dense couple weeks on content, which is pretty cool. But regardless, let's just get straight into it. I'm very interested to see what this is like, given that the thumbnail is high-quality 2D art, despite the fact that this is a demo, which normally is the full 3D. So let's just get right into it, see what this is about. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and let's get into it. Okay. Okay, we're in full 2D.
No. Please, no.
A white crow? Is this not an animated short? Okay. Some kind of medication?
A new mission. Tracking down a murderer.
Oh, okay. This is just an animated short. Okay, his collar. They called that out in the special program. My brain, sorry. Oh.
Is it usually so crowded at this time of day?
Does he have ether corruption?
I heard the murderer.
Only a monster can leave such wounds.
Okay. God, this looks amazing.
Mommy, what's that?
Monster. That's a monster. Who are you talking about?
Okay, so something about him, he views himself as a monster.
I'm not. I didn't hurt anyone. It wasn't me. It wasn't me.
And now we move into 3D? What the hell was that opening? That was a change. Are we moving back into 2D? It looks like it. Oh, Jesus. The color here is amazing.
Ethereal. It wasn't me. It wasn't.
Okay, the loop continues. He hasn't bothered picking up his meds. Didn't even take off the collar. Okay. Continuing the theme of him being a monster and denying it. The white crows. Back to 3D. I am so intrigued by the style of this. I love the dual-wield style, by the way. Transforming weapons are some of my favorite stuff.
Hey, kiddo.
Back to 2D.
Steph, huh? Don't be afraid. I'll get you out of here.
This kid's gonna think he's a monster. Whoa!
Why are you looking at me like that?
The distortion on the voice. Oh, shit. No, he's not here. He's not home. Happy birthday. Congrats on making it this far. What the fuck? Oh my god! So they went above and beyond for this? This is like 80% animated short, 20% demo. And I honestly love this. This is, of any demo or trailer for a character released, one of the most distinct things I've seen from any of the games. So clearly, this is all alluding to a theme with his character that probably has to do with his past and history that prior to now had been unknown. There's something about him that leads him to fearing that he will become a monster or is a monster, and that people will see him as such. My guess, based on some of the imagery that we've been getting recently for him, is that probably as a child, he was experimented on. Some have experimentation involving ether and potentially symptoms of ether corruption, and maybe even trying to harness the power of ethereals within a person or something like that, were done to him as a child potentially. And though he has escaped that in whatever form he has, it has led to him fearing that he will be seen as ethereal. That is the feeling I get from this. But to go through the actual visuals, we start on the empty streets of New Eridu, color graded so that everything is cast in reds and blues, making it rather ephemeral and strange and abnormal feeling. It's raining, it's a full downpour. We see him look over his shoulder, eyes wide, and he looks at a child that we don't see the face of, who says, "No, please no." Perhaps this is Asaba when he was a child, being experimented on. We see this white bro, which I imagine is supposed to represent something of the mirror of him as a person, or potentially, in an interesting way, given that it's white rather than black, his dark side, perhaps. Because he has an amount of Tengu aesthetics connected to ravens and crows, but we haven't seen him connected to white crows, really, which implies sort of a mirroring of the normal black coloration. His eyes widen, his pupils shake, he's clearly surprised and a bit afraid of something he's seeing. The bird flies off and then he wakes up. We can see that he has a bottle of something here, it would look like. His headband just at the side of his bed. Everything is fuzzy to show us that he's just waking up, and he receives a message. Like clockwork repeated here, he keeps getting a new message day after day. We see it's July, and it's hard to make out what day it is, but I think it might be the 12th or 13th. But then he reaches out to try to get his phone, but just knocks over another bottle of medication, knocking some of it to the floor, and then he reaches over again and gets his phone this time. There's a shot where we start at his chest and pan up. This shot is almost certainly just for certain crowds. Equal opportunity fan service. He looks at his phone, reads the message out loud. A new mission, tracking down a murderer? What I'm curious about here is this a mission for him in his position as a member of Section 6? Or is this something different? Is this something from before his time in Section 6? Or is he secretly doing something else? Because tracking down a murderer I could see being part of his job description, but that seems a bit abnormal for what, generally speaking, Section 6 has been portrayed as mainly doing. But he gets up, we can hear his footsteps, and we pan on his side table to see his medical record, a lot of it scratched out. All the stuff here is crossed out. I wonder if any of it is actually legible. I think we need to really sort of zoom in on it more. It would be interesting to see if we can figure out what's written there. But he puts on his choker, which, as I was attempting to recall during the initial reaction, they called out his choker and headband as things he constantly wears for a particular reason in the special program. But they didn't give us the reason why, so I'd be curious to know about that. But he looks at himself in the mirror, just staring blankly, and then everything shifts as his reflection becomes that of an ethereal. And he blinks in shock, eyes wide, and looks around as suddenly he's in the middle of the street. People surrounding him, walking around. As someone says, "Is it usually so crowded at this time of day?" Ah, poor child. I heard the murderer isn't even human. Just voices layering on top of each other, initially being just idle chatter of people around him, but then they turn towards the context of what his latest mission is, of finding a murderer. Who could the murderer be? Well, I heard they weren't even human. We follow his gaze as he goes across the crowd. Only a monster could leave such wounds, implying that whoever this murderer is vicious and ruthless and tears the victims apart. He looks around terrified at the crowd. Someone takes a picture of him, and we hold on him for a moment as he slowly turns, that shot of him looking past his shoulder terrified, and he sees everyone looking at him, their phones out, taking pictures, recording video as everyone speaks. How cruel. Mommy, what's that? Shh. Don't get too close. Look over there. Monster. That's a monster. At this point, it's all implied that they're looking at him, unsure of what he is, terrified of him, thinking he's a monster, as he, not processing truly that they're talking about him, says, "Who are you talking about?" He can tell that they're looking at him, but he's trying to deny that in his own mind. But the voices become more hostile. "Monster, stay away from us." Interestingly enough, his hands go to his neck, to where his choker is. His fingers go almost to the base of his neck, which reminds me of the one image we had from the special program of him younger with all of the cables coming out of his spine, as he tries to retort, fearfully saying, "No, I'm not a monster. I'm not. I didn't." He begins to stumble, and as they just keep saying that he's a monster, keep taking pictures, he continues to try to retort them. "I didn't hurt anyone. It wasn't me. It wasn't me." And then finally another voice calls out, shouting, "The monster's the murderer. This ruthless monster that tore these people to pieces. A murderer. And he is that person. In all likelihood, his worst fears made real." And then, interestingly enough, we shift to 3D. This is one of the 2 times it happens. But he stands up. He's still in the same spot within the street, but now he's surrounded by ethereals. His expression is serious. He has his weapons, and the music comes in as he looks around and begins fighting. It's entirely possible that this is meant to just be a transition into showing off his combat, but I feel that it is equally possible that this is a distortion of his vision, a distortion of whatever dream he's in, because I don't think this is really happening, where all of these people calling him monsters transform into enemies that he then tries to fight off. But rather ironically, if it's the people who are calling him a monster that transformed into enemies for him to fight, that implies that he's attacking the very people who claim him to be a murderer and a monster. But nonetheless, he just is fighting here. We don't see any conflict on his face. But he then shoots this arrow, and it serves as a transition back to 2D. As this arrow flies forward and becomes this capsule with some kind of fluid in it, clearly some kind of injector, and it crashes into the base of a younger Asaba's neck. And the colors go wild as we see it inject into him these branching, glowing green and yellow veins of whatever was in that capsule going into him. He stumbles. Everything goes black and white and becomes sketchy, as he just becomes a mix of colors and shapes. His voice distorted. He says, "I didn't become an ethereal. It wasn't me. It wasn't." And this leads me to think that maybe a lot of these fears are based in something in his past, where in whatever experiments were happening to him, he went out of control and killed several people. And once he came back into his full consciousness, he realized what he had done and went into self-denial about it, saying that, "No, I didn't become a full ethereal, I couldn't have done this," implying that it had to do with ether corruption in some way. But then we return to him waking up. Dream within a dream, perhaps, or maybe just another day passing by. His headband is right there next to him once again, but this time he's already wearing his collar. Once again, you have received a new message. Once again, it's sort of hard to tell what day it is, but I actually think it might be the 18th, which admittedly, thinking back to the previous time it was shown, that date was circled and it was hard to tell what day was crossed out, so it might be that this is a repetition of the 19th of July. Some kind of dream within a dream scenario, or some kind of other loop. He reaches out, the pills are already knocked over here, he gets his phone, looks at it, we pan up to his medical record, nothing clearly changed. But then, as he comes to the mirror, written in the fog of the mirror is, "Look closer, it's you." And he reaches out to his reflection. It cracks, and a collection of these white birds fly through at him. He tries to protect himself, and then we shift to the other 3D segment, starting at a young child crying. We pull out to show they're surrounded by ethereals. He walks towards them unafraid. The music builds. He dispatches the ethereals without much issue, showing off his abilities. And then we return to the 2D style. A train is going by, giving some dynamic lighting to all of this. He stands and says, "Hey kiddo, scared stiff, huh?" He walks towards the child, saying, "Don't be afraid. I'll get you out of here." The kid grows only more terrified as we change to this very distinct style of black and white with red background and just bright shining light of the train. The environment as well as Asaba becomes this, once again, sketchy amorphous shape, uncontrolled, uncontained, as he says, "What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that?" And as he says it, his voice begins to distort. Returning to the normal style, the child looks at him in terror. And we see, back in the distorted black and white and red, through the reflection of the terrified child's eyes, the distorted shape of an ethereal where Asaba should be, as he struggles to get through the sentence, "I'll get you home." And we then see the vague silhouette of the ethereal we saw in the mirror before, Asaba. And then it returns, beginning the loop again, but he's not in bed this time. The room is empty. This time we pan from his medical record, his image now gone. Okay, so something I actually just went back to check and realized. So on the last instance, his image is gone from his medical record. But going back, the first time, his image is clearly a silhouette of his adult self. It's vague, but it's clearly adult. We can intuit it's him based on it sharing his name and everything. But the second time we see it, it's a different silhouette, that reminiscent more of a child. Him as a child when he was being experimented on. And then finally he is gone. Perhaps this is going back in time. Him reverting back. Something like that, perhaps. But we move to his phone. He's not here to receive the messages, but they come all the same. Happy birthday. Congrats on making it this far. And that's where they leave the entire demo. This is an insane demo. I had no real expectations for Asaba. During the special program, I began to have an interest, given some of the things they were hinting towards, but I never could have imagined that we were going into something like this. This is an incredible demo, and it just makes me all that much more excited to learn what is going on here. Was Asaba experimented on with some kind of ethereal corruption test, or something like that, like I've been theorizing here? Is it something else? I'm not sure, but I can't wait to find out. But with that, I think I've covered everything here, so I'll let the video end here. Feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video, leave a comment on your thoughts, and I hope you all have a great day. Goodbye.